This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have debut author Jessie Garcia here to talk about her new release, The Business Trip. Welcome, Jessie.
Well, thank you so much, Marie. It's really an honor to be here.
It is all my honor. I absolutely could not put this book down from the moment I opened the cover, and it was just read until I got to the end. But before I get into all of my crazy love for this story, can you start listeners off with an overview of what it's about?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The Business Trip is about two women, random strangers, who just happen to be on the same plane, the same flight. They're from different walks of life. They have different backgrounds. They're getting on the plane for different reasons. They're not even going to the same city. And yet then you meet both of them, you get to know them and their lives, and then they both board the plane. And then the narrative shifts to their friends and family because their friends and family start getting some strange texts from them that just don't quite add up, or they're just odd, a little out of character. And then both women, the texts turn a little bit more menacing, and both women disappear. And so their friends and family are scrambling to figure out what happened to these women. Of course, friends and family don't know each other either. These are, they're two separate groups of people. And it takes you through the whole narrative until finally, the big reveal, or really multiple reveals of what happened.
To say that this book, that I devoured it, isn't even true. I kind of inhaled it. It was so good. Do you watch true crime a lot?
I do like watching true crime. I'm not obsessed. It's not something that I watch, every night or even every week. But I think, ever since, for sure, college, probably even before that, high school, I've kind of gravitated towards those things. And I do joke that thriller authors, we tend to go through the world thinking of everything as a possible book. You look at everything and you go, that could be, and what if that happened? And what if that person did that, so your whole life is kind of filled with that.
The way you set it up, especially with the text, because this is something people do. Bad people do this. They pick up their victims' phones and they do things. And sometimes we assume it's a bad person, and maybe it's not. Maybe our friend is just a little off that day and they're sounding kind of weird and they're just not available. How did you come up with that much content and make it so natural where we have to wonder, is this one of the ladies? Is this someone bad?
Right. Well, thank you. I came up with the concept for this book when I went on a business trip myself. And I live in Wisconsin. This book starts in Wisconsin, and then they're getting on a plane to Denver, and one of them is just transferring planes, and she's going on to San Diego. That's what I was doing. I was flying from Wisconsin to Denver to San Diego to a conference. And on the plane on the way, I was sitting next to a woman and we just started chatting. And when we got to Denver, this idea just sort of started to form in my head. What if this happened and this happened and this happened? How would that play out? So that's sort of the concept. And then I did want it to be somewhat modern, to have like the texts in there and the different things that are sort of modern technology, just because we do all communicate that way. And to your point, I mean, every day we're all trying to figure out, is something that's coming at us real? Is it a scam? Is it, can we trust this or that? So, I think that can be very true to life too.
There's so much in this beyond just the way that you set up the text and the quote subtext of the text. One of the things I thought was very, very interesting, and that was a point where I didn't close the book, but the cover was close to closing, just as I kind of glanced off in the distance and thought about the way that we react to things as human beings, specifically in the working world. I noticed that if you were to watch true crime and coworkers were interviewed, they would immediately say, oh, I was so worried about them. I was just worried because they didn't show up to work. But I wonder if for everyone that's always the case, because it's been my experience that if you don't show up to work or something happens, usually the job wants to know why the heck you're not there. That's the first impetus, right, for that call. Was that something that you pulled on in your own experience? Because I think sometimes, even when if it's our friends, if they were supposed to meet us somewhere and we think, well, geez, they're supposed to be here. Where are they? And we're mad at them in some degree
Right.
before the concern starts in.
Right, right. Yeah, I appreciate that. I still work full time, and I only write on weekends. Being in the working world all day, every weekday, I just have a lot of experience with offices and office politics, and all the different things, the meetings and everything that are going on all the time. I work at a television station. There's a lot of television news in this book. There will be actually in my next books as well. I think that's going to be kind of my my niche. But yes, one of the things my agent said when she first read this is she said, I love the office politics. It's so relatable to anybody in any profession where you're expecting your coworker and they don't show up and you're annoyed because now you have to run a meeting they were supposed to run, that kind of thing. So I did have fun kind of playing with the office setting.
What was it about strong women? Have there been strong women in your background, in your life? Because you have a variety of strong women in this book, and they will just blow readers away.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I was raised by a single mother until I was 10. That's when she met my stepfather, and then they got married when I was 15. But, for many, many years, I'm an only child too. So for many, many years, it was just me and my mother, and she's a very strong woman. In fact, she had a very unusual job in the 1970s. She was a carpenter and an architectural assistant. And so she did these things that a lot of women were not doing. I remember my mom walking around, she wore overalls with a hammer, hanging off the loop on the side, and she was building bookshelves and doing all this stuff. And so I think that, her being a role model, I actually wound up being into sportscasting. That was my career for many years. And I was actually the state of Wisconsin's first female sports anchor. So I was living in a world of men, and I hardly had there were no women, around. And so, I guess I do consider myself a strong woman in that way too. But thank you for recognizing that, because it was really fun to write some feisty and strong women. And when you're writing a novel, you draw on lots of different parts of your life, your own life. Of course, you make up a big portion of it, and that's why fiction is fun. And a lot of characters are conglomerations of other people. But you draw on things from your own life, and if somebody reads this book, there's a little bit of me in Stephanie, and there's a little bit of me in Jasmine, there's a little bit of me in Lucy.
I absolutely loved that authenticity of these strong women, and it totally makes sense now. I want to thank you for being a first. It never comes easy. There's always a cost to that. And I am sure that every woman who's come after you has appreciated you going and beating down the bushes.
Thank you for saying that. That's nice.
In the process.
Trent is one character that if people read the book that, he is really, like I said, a conglomeration. I think I took every sort of like nasty trait I've ever seen in a guy or even a woman and threw them into this one character just because it was really fun to write. But also I have met people like that. And I think we all have to some extent. I wouldn't say that it necessarily came from my sports reporting days, because honestly, I had great coworkers, great bosses. For the most part, the athletes that I dealt with were extremely respectful. I wouldn't say it came so much from there as just different times that you've crossed paths with people. I remember being in a meeting with a guy who the entire meeting just jiggled his watch, just crazy. And it was kind of driving me insane. So I put that little detail in for Trent at one point, that he's just jiggling his watch nonstop, little things like that, you just kind of throw into a character.
And Trent is the greatest example. He's such an authentic character. He's so very much that guy you would love to hate for every reason. And it was so fun for me because after I read the book, I happened to go to a hotel where there was a convention going on. And I have to tell you, there were a couple of Trents that I ran into. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I wish someone else was here who read this book and could be like, do you see the Trent over there?
It's funny you say that, because like my friends and family now will actually use it that way. Like, oh, there's a Trent.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be getting that moniker from now on.
As with anything, it was a blast to get in all these different heads. This book has 10 points of view, which is a lot. I know. Believe it or not, it actually had a couple more in the original draft and we took a couple out. It's fun to head hop, and it's a little bit of a different book, actually inspired by one of my favorite childhood books. I'll just show it for a second. This book, The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin, is a classic 1970s puzzle mystery book. And I think I read this, I don't even know how many dozens of times, because I was fascinated by how she had all these points of view and all these little clues that were hidden in plain sight that you didn't even realize were clues. And you wondered how it was all going to come together in the end. And then magically, it sort of all came together in the end. I like my books to be like a prism. You're looking at it from all of these different angles, and you're only getting the little bits that that person would get, or thinking the things that that person would be thinking until it all kind of starts to come together in the middle.
One of the other things that you explored that I thought was very interesting was trust, and whether we can trust the people in our lives. Number one, to care about us and to watch out for us when we need it. And number two, even in general, like you said, if you're passing someone on the street, somebody you're talking to in the grocery store, whatever it is, do you think trust is something that we give too easily in society? And do you think we should be more guarded, or do you think we should let down our guard more often?
Oh, such a good question. I think we're all learning to be more guarded. It's funny. We were looking to buy a used car, and I saw that a friend of mine had posted that she was selling a used car the other day. And I messaged her and said, "Hey, is that still available?" And she was like, "That was a complete scam. Somebody stole my identity and put that out there because they wanted people to send them money as a down payment." And I was blown away. So it just reminded me that, we have to triple check everything in today's day and age. But that also makes me sad because, you want to be able to meet people and to trust that they're going to be good at their core. And, sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. But I do think that trust is kind of a central theme to the entire thing, too. And yeah, like I said, going back to my, conversation on the plane with this woman, it was one of those conversations where we just sort of, I guess we were both in a talkative mood and we just talked a lot. And, I came away going, wow, I just learned a lot about her and she learned a lot about me. That was interesting.
And it's funny, those organic moments where even if we do try to be guarded, there's those certain people we connect with. And whether it's something in the water on the plane or just that person and innately who they are, that get us to open up our little clamshells and come out.
Right.
The great thing about this book is that it reminds us that even in those magic moments when we connect with people, whether it's long-term connections, long-term friendships, jobs, whatever it is, at the end of the day, are we always safe with everyone? Are we safe at our jobs? Are we safe with old friends, new friends?
Right.
Is that something you think about in life, being a journalist?
Yeah. And, sports used to be my beat. Now I'm in news. So now I oversee the newsroom as the news director. And so I am dealing with news all the time and with unfortunate things. I mean, we say humans are not being nice to other humans all the time. That has made me probably extra guarded. I don't trust people very easily. You get, I don't know, a LinkedIn request from somebody you don't know. I am not likely to accept something like that because who knows, could be completely false, made up profile, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm not going to go meet somebody in a strange place to purchase something from them. I mean, we've just seen way too much bad stuff in television news. And I think it makes us really guarded.
It's just become so much of our culture through social media that some folks, even if you're in a small little town and you feel like you can trust everybody in your small town, if you're on social media or you have an email, you're up there pretty much exposed to the world in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
and scams and predators, unfortunately, who are looking to take advantage of others.
Absolutely. And like I said, it feels unfortunate because in some ways I would love to turn back the decades, like to when I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And I guess looking back, things felt so innocent and they weren't. There were bad people back then too. But it was just different, I think, in terms of that level that you could get at somebody or learn things about them so easily.
Yeah, the damage that you could do. One more quick question that was just burning in my little brain. Sometimes people experience a major event of trauma in their lives and it shapes them for the rest of their lives. Sometimes it happens early, sometimes it happens later. But some people, and I think this is true for all of us in different ways to different degrees, experience multi-layers of trauma that happen throughout our lives that kind of build up over time. Was that something you were thinking about in this book in particular, in terms of, we do kind of get dumped on in life, don't we? Whether we like it or not. There's kind of one thing after another. And if you just look at it from the basics, our parents are older than us, so we're going to experience that loss. And
Right.
that whole generations above us, we're going to experience those losses. We hope that we never have to experience the generations below us.
Right.
And then there's a variety of other human behavior that can happen, and chaos that can happen just with Mother Nature, that we don't know what awaits us. Was that on your mind at all, that sometimes these things build up for people?
Yeah, it was. Although, I do have to give some credit to my agents here too, because in the first draft, I don't think I had enough backstory of one of the characters. And I remember them saying, like, we need to understand this character more. We need to understand the motivation more. We need to have a little bit more about, what could drive this person. And so I went back in and really layered in a bunch more. And I think part of that too is being newer to the fiction game myself. I was a nonfiction author. I wrote 3 nonfiction books. And I just dabbled in fiction, maybe, I don't know how many years ago that was, 6 years or so ago. And then I wrote a couple of thrillers that never got published. Now that I'm writing another book that will also be published by St. Martin's, I'm trying to do that from the jump this time. I think I was just a little too plot heavy without motivation on the first one.
I think that you're pretty much at a master's level based on what I read in this book. It was so phenomenal. Where you choose to do it, if you choose to do it on the front end or the back end during the editing process, hey, I will not question perfection, because this book was
You're very
absolutely
sweet.
amazing. You have had an amazing career. You have been a pioneer. You have added a lot to the news community, journalism, nonfiction. Now you're taking the fiction world by storm.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, I am hoping so, Jessie, because anyone
You're
who
so
reads
sweet.
this is going to love it. My big question, what do you do for fun?
Honestly, I write for fun. I have 2 kids, 2 sons who are in their 20s, and my husband, and they joke that I have absolutely no skills other than writing and being a journalist. And they're correct. I'm not a good cook. I'm not, good at gardening or sewing or crafting. I really, when I have free time, I want to write. And so I get so excited to write. I think particularly for me, because I really only write on weekends because I'm working full time. Usually weeknights, honestly, I'm pretty exhausted. And so I sort of save it all up. And then I'll wake up at 5 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday morning, just raring to go. And I can easily write for 5-6 hours, little meal break here and there, big pot of coffee. And it feels like 20 minutes have passed because you get so into it. I mean, that's pretty much what I do for fun. I have a dog and a cat. I obviously I like taking walks or hikes, with the dog. I like the normal stuff, take a bike ride on a nice day, but just let me go at writing and I will be happy as a clam.
Well, I am very glad you did go for the business trip, and I can't wait to see what else is coming. Speaking of, what else can readers expect?
Yeah, so I have another one coming out in January of 2026. We're not quite ready to announce the title yet, but it's coming soon. And it's another multi-point of view television news based thriller. So if you like The Business Trip, I think you're really going to like this next one. And then I'm working on a third one that would come out a year later, so 2027. Same thing, the television news multi-point of view. So I think that's my lane. I remember my agent saying is that there was not a lot of television news and fiction. If I can be that person who also kind of shows you a little bit of what life and TV news is like, that's also a lot of fun. So those are the things that I'm doing in my free time, I guess.
Well, I am so glad that you are, because it means I have more to read from you.
Thank you. That's so nice of you.
Now, given that you have this amazing book and there are droves of people who are going to want to reach out, Where is the best place for readers to find you and to find out exactly what and when is coming?
I do have a website, jessiegarciabooks.com, so feel free to pop over there. And the place that I populate the most is Instagram, Jessie Garcia underscore author. And I'll put a lot of things out there. In fact, I just put a picture on right before this about our engagement today. And then, I am on Facebook as well under Jessie Garcia. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the things, TikTok, Threads, X, all of those. But for author stuff, I really do focus on Instagram.
Fantastic. And I do have to say, as one last little tidbit, you mentioned 10 points of view. One might think that's a lot, but it is, believe me, it is fantastic. And that's why I mentioned true crime from the beginning, because it's like one of those true crime documentaries where you start getting the little interviews, and it jumps from one person to the other, and you're like, oh, what do they know? And then the commercial break comes, and they saying, wait till you hear what this person came in and said. That's why you just can't put it down.
Oh, that's nice. Well, that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping that it would be like that and not be confusing with the points of view. I will say in the audiobook, they hired 10 different narrators for the different parts, and they all just nailed their parts. So that was really a lot of fun to see it come to life that way too.
Oh my gosh, I may have to now listen to the audiobook again, because that would just be so cool to hear the different voices.
Well, please do. Thank you. I hope others enjoy it. I really do. It was an absolute blast to write this book. It was so much fun, and it's been fun to see it. I'll just quickly show one last thing, one last prop. This is the UK cover, which is obviously different from the US cover, and it's sold in 7 countries now. And so I'll get to see the different covers from different countries as well. I think the UK is the only one that's like currently out at the moment, but it just was so much fun to write it. And I hope that people just enjoy reading it.
Well, I think you hit it out of the park. I can't imagine what you could have possibly left on the table. It was phenomenal.
Thank you so much, Marie. That's so nice.
Thank you. And again, it is The Business Trip by Jessie Garcia. Absolutely fantastic read. And thank you again, Jessie, for joining me today.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.